Hello, Nancy. How are you? Hello, Sandy. Susan.
Hi.
Hi. I'm so glad to see you all here tonight. This is wonderful.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
You look wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Winter has been agreeing with me.
Good.
Yeah, I'm a bit done with the snow, but
For sure.
Yeah. Done with the snow. I don't think we're expecting any more. At least I hope not. And if we are, please don't tell me. But it's quite nice to see it going. We have a pile of snow out front that's easily 6 feet tall. Basically around the whole back parking lot, there's a ring of snow that is, 4 feet tall all the way around. So it's nice to see with the warmer weather today that it's going down a little bit.
It's here at the shore. So much of it is melting. It was a beautiful walk day. Surprising.
Oh, so wonderful. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Stella, how are you tonight? How are you? I don't know if that's a picture or if your camera is sideways. I think it must be a picture. Yeah. And Susan, how are you this evening? And Sandy, tell me what you're up to. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I too enjoyed a walk today amidst melting snow. It was beautiful.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I noticed that Susan and Stella, I think, are muted.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they would have to unmute themselves, though. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I can always ask them to. There we go.
I was so excited when I saw this series pop up. Perfect.
It's really, it's my favorite. If I have a favorite topic, the Divine Mother. What more is there to talk about, right? Hello,
Yeah.
Heather. I'm so glad you're here tonight. And I did it on Clubhouse, and it went very well.
Good.
You talk about the Divine Mother. How could it not go very well?
Right.
And so many people had said to me, that they can't access Clubhouse because they don't have an iPhone. Would I consider doing it again, or doing a recording on the Clubhouse one? And I'm still figuring that whole thing out. So I didn't want to try to record at the same time. So I just figured it'll be easier, just repeat it.
Well, thank you for doing so. Really appreciate it, because I was so disappointed. I hadn't even heard of Clubhouse. I'm like, what now?
It's actually, if you can get on there, is it worth getting an iPhone versus an Android? I don't know, but it really is it's a great resource, and they're going to come out of beta eventually.
Good, good.
And be open across platforms. I'm certain of it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fantastic speakers and just really great community. So it's not like Facebook. You can't post messages or anything like that. It's just drop-in audio. So it's like live podcasting, only different. Yeah, different.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll get started in just one moment. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. I think we're expecting 2 more people. Well, I'm so happy to see you all here tonight. Hello, Dakshina. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to be here. So glad to be in your presence.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And mine to be in yours. Mine to be in yours. So we come together tonight to talk about the Divine Mother's legacy. And in thinking about what to call this series, which may end up being an extended series, I'm still mulling over that. There certainly is a lot to talk about with regard to the Divine Mother, learning the scriptures and the chants, and just investigating the essence of what she represents in each and every one of her forms. it really was meant to be a devotion, an offering from myself to her, to just spread the love of her and the grace that that she is and that she represents. And so when we talk about the Divine Mother, every tradition has some form of a female. In Christianity, there's Mary, Mother Mary. There's also Miriam. There's Brigitte. There's so many different names. And the thing that each and every one of them share is the essence of love. And each one manifests that essence of love in a slightly different way. Some are maternal. Some are a very straightforward kind of warrior love. It's a love for the truth, a love for all that is real, and the straightforward sight to understand what needs to stop, what needs to end. So the mother is very much love. She is very much creation. She is the mother. She is the source of us all. And she is the creation of everything that is. So many traditions talk about the father being the creator. But the tradition that I belong to, the Shakta tradition, the mother is the one behind the curtain. She is the one who said, bring it all forward. And everything that came forward from her was an aspect of her play, what is called Leela. And, I've heard so many people talk about it in so many different ways, but there was one really interesting comparison that I heard a while back, and I think it's the Navajo. It's either the Navajo or the Hopi, where it appears that the men have all the power. But if you go inside of the society that they have, inside the culture that they have, what you find out is that the men are the mouthpieces, and it's actually the women who make the decisions. They're the ones who bring it all forward. And so I look at the mother kind of like that. We live in a world that is highly patriarchal. And so she doesn't really care. She's like, go ahead. If you want to take, credit for my creation, then be my guest. But the truth is the truth, and you'll never be able to rewrite that. So she lets them be the mouthpiece. But in the meantime, those of us who are open to her grace and who have decided to come into a devotion toward her, we come to realize that she is actually the founder of this universe and of everything that has manifested in this universe for all of time. And that includes you and me and the trees and the grass and the flowers and the planets, the suns, the moons, and the stars, all of it. And so there's this very beautiful, let's see. So Heather says, sorry, I can't get my audio to work, new phone. Oh, okay. But you can hear me, Heather? Hopefully you can hear me. So she is the universe. I lost my train of thought. So she is the universe, and the universe is her. And so one of the first things that we can come to realize as we're talking about the mother and as we are investigating our relationship with her is that if she is this universe, then every step we take, we are taking a step upon her body. We are walking through her being. We are actually living out our life in the atomicness of her essence. And so in this regard, it calls my heart to walk softer upon this earth, to walk more softly, more compassionately, and to remember with each step that it is she that I am stepping on. And when I went to India a year and a half ago, doesn't seem like that long, and yet it does, to take my vows of renunciation. We were up in Rishikesh, and the vows are done. You cleanse in the waters of Mother Ganga, the Ganga River in Rishikesh. And so the river is a very, very unpredictable river. It has a lot of very strong currents, and a lot of people actually are lost to the river who go swimming in there in the areas that are not so safe. So all along the banks, they have these chains that you hold on to as you walk out a little bit in order to submerge yourself. But before you enter the river, which is the mother, it is the mother in the form of Ganga, Ma Ganga. You must touch the water with your toe, apologize for stepping on her, and ask her to allow you in. So again, it is the acknowledgement, it's the recognition that she is the foundation of everything, even that upon which we walk. So we're going to, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at different aspects of the Divine Mother. And tonight we're going to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about the essence of her diversity, with diversity being one of her legacies to us, one of her gifts to us. And in order to have this conversation, I'm going to read a little bit of scripture shortly from the Devi Mahatmya, the song of the Mother Goddess. And of course, all of our wisdom comes from such teachings and comes from commentaries that have been offered on these teachings. And so we'll read a little bit of the scripture, and then we'll kind of highlight what that scripture offers us, what it could be interpreted as meaning for us, and how it can guide us along the path. So let's begin by sitting nice and tall, and we'll close the eyes. And as you close the eyes, I'll ask you to come into a beautiful alignment, body, mind, and soul. Feel that your body is well aligned physically, that your mind softens into that alignment, and that your spirit also is with you. And that you see all aspects of yourself uniting in oneness. And then in your mind's eye, visualize a candle. And maybe there's a scent to the candle. See if you can call forward the smell of the scent of the candle. And as you're offering to the Mother your study this evening, the time that you will take concentrating the devotion to her, to getting to know her, to cultivating the relationship with her, see yourself as lighting that candle. Beloved Mother, please humbly accept us in the realm of your being. Empower us to know you. Free us from the confines of the ego. Awaken us to the completeness of our hearts. And then placing your right hand on your heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a nice breath in. Om. And then gently fluttering the eyes open, and you can release the hand down. And I'm going to leave this little candle lit over here next to the computer, and that will be our smaller altar for this evening's program, the flame burning as our love burns for her. So, the Devi Gita. I will be reading from C. Mackenzie Brown's version, and this is a beautifully accessible version. There is the transliteration, and then there is a little bit of commentary as well. And I'm going to start with the beginning of chapter 2, because this is really where we get into the description of her. And actually, she's describing herself. And this is what it says. The goddess spoke. May all the gods attend to what I have to say. By merely hearing these words of mine, one attains my essential nature. I alone existed in the beginning. There was nothing else at all, O Mountain King. My true self is known as pure consciousness, the highest intelligence, the one supreme Brahman. It is beyond reason, indescribable, incomparable, incorruptible. From out of itself evolves a certain power renowned as Maya. Neither real nor unreal is this Maya. nor is it both, for that would be incongruous. Lacking such characteristics, this indefinite entity has always subsisted, as heat inheres in fire, as brilliance in the sun, as cool light in the moon. Just so, this Maya inheres firmly in me. Into that Maya, the actions of souls, the souls themselves, and the ages eventually dissolve without distinction, as worldly concerns appear in deep sleep. By uniting with this inherent power of mine, I become the cosmic seed. By obscuring me, its own basis, this power is prone to defects. Through its association with consciousness, Maya is called the efficient cause of the world. Through its evolution into the visible realm, it is said to be the material cause. Some call this Maya the power of austerity. Others call it darkness. Still others, dullness, knowledge, illusion, matter, nature, energy, or the unborn. Wow. So this is how the goddess begins to describe herself for us. And she begins with the first verse that says, "May all the gods attend to what I have to say. May they all stop what they're doing and listen, because these words matter. And if the masculine energy of this universe, as it is embodied in the body of men first, but also women, wishes to be balanced and harmonious, then it must hear the words of its mother. Men must hear the words of the mother, and they must honor them." So this is huge, because for so long in our world history, women have not been honored. Women have been chattel. Women have been property. Women have been tortured. Women have been bought and sold. Women have been belittled. There have been times and there have been areas of the world where, yes, women have been held up, honored, and appreciated, treated well. But that's not the bulk of our history. The bulk of our history is the mistreatment of women. Therefore, the mistreatment of that which is predominantly feminine, the mother. And look where it's gotten us. It's gotten us into a modern day where warfare is everywhere, violence is everywhere, egos are everywhere. And the mother looks at this and she says, it's all child's play. The wars, the violence, all of this is the consequence of immature egos that are playing with each other, trying to figure out who's the king of the mountain. And that is ignorance. Because there is no king of the mountain other than the mountain king, but that's a whole different story. There is the source, and the source is her. So the gods should attend to what she has to say. And by merely hearing her, and we also go as far as to say by merely reading her words or by listening to them being chanted, they infuse within us the wisdom that they carry. We don't even have to know what they mean. We don't have to take it apart. We don't have to be able to read or understand Sanskrit. And even when it's an English translation, we don't really need to understand all of it. It's the quality of the message that's coming through the words that touches the soul and the heart of our being, and not the academic exercise of understanding book-wise. It is knowing through the heart, knowing through the heart. So she says, by merely hearing these words, that energy comes to us, it flows to us, it permeates every cell of our being, and it fills us with the truth of her grace. So we want to say thank you to her for this, because what we're also saying here is that it's not just these words, it's also where she is. It's her breath, it's her presence, And once we come into, a place in our life where we are devoting ourselves to her, honoring her, we recognize that she is the essence of everything. So she's actually never not there. So that essence is always flowing through us. Every breath we take is her. Every step we take, every flower we smell, every bird we hear, it's all her. So that grace is always with us. But for those of us who need something tangible that we can feel in control of, we have a book and we can sit down and we can read it. For those of us who are auditory, we can hear it. For those of us who, communicate through taste, we can enjoy fresh fruit fallen from a tree. For those who enjoy touch, there's lots of different aspects there. Abhyanga, self-care, making love to your partner. She's everywhere. She is in everything. So in every way that our senses work and move us through this world, it's her that we are taking in as information through our senses. But our minds are kind of broken into two parts. One part of the mind is very healthy, and it recognizes the sacredness, even if it calls it by some other, name. It recognizes the sacredness and the gift of this life. The other part of the mind is the ego, and it is typically unbalanced. And it says, what I'm getting in through my senses is for me. It's for my indulgence. It's for my satisfaction. It's for my pleasure. And so the mother again says, so be it. No, I don't got a problem with that. That's child's play. If you're going to limit what you experience in this life to your own self-indulgence, go for it. But then don't come crying when you suffer. Don't come crying when you suffer. Instead, change your ways and begin to understand that what flows to you from her, what flows through you is her. And that is something to be humble about and to commit ourselves to enjoyment. Yes, absolutely. But also to service, to the service of the alleviation of the suffering of all beings so that we can all be happy together. So we go on to the second verse. And I'm going to say that if you have something you'd like to say, if you have a reflection you'd like to share, then please go ahead, raise your hand. I'll keep my eye up there as best I can. And I'll also stop a little bit along the way and ask you for your reflections. So verse 2, I alone existed in the beginning. There was nothing else at all. So there was nothing, and she was that. And from the nothingness came somethingness. And she's that. So she is both nothing and something and everything. And she tells us this right here. And she's talking to the mountain king. So the mountain king is a god. It's the Himalaya, the Lord Himalaya, the king of the Himalayan mountains. And she's telling him, she's explaining to him who she is because he has requested that she be born into his family as a human daughter. And so she's saying, do you know what you're asking? Do you know who I really am? I am the one who alone existed. So I might be a bit more than just your daughter if I decide to this, and you need to remember that, because if you forget that, then I will be gone. You need to honor me or I will be gone. And she literally tells him this later also. She says, as your daughter, you must never forget who I really am. If you forget who I really am, then I will not stay. And I won't tell you what happened there. That'll be another program. She goes on to say, my true self is known as pure consciousness, the highest intelligence, the one supreme Brahman. Pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, there are so many traditions in India. There's literally, there's hundreds. And then there's thousands of lineages. And there are many names, many, many, many names. And one of the names is Shiva. And the word Shiva and Shiva himself represent pure consciousness. And Shiva just happens to be the consort or the cohort of Shakti. And so in some traditions, they say that the ultimate harmony within the universe is when the masculine, in the form of Shiva, and the feminine, Shakti, or Parvati, Durga, Kali, she goes by many names, are intertwined where the body actually is both. It's half masculine and half feminine, half Shiva, half Shakti, or Parvati. Shakti is really without form, but half Shiva, half Parvati. And together, there is no conflict between them. They coexist as harmonic equals. Not that they're always 50-50, but that they are always appropriate to one another. And the lesson there is that if we choose to step onto the path of higher consciousness, if that's what we seek in this life, if we're looking for harmony, happiness, peace, then we need to recognize in ourselves and in the world around us where this partnership is out of balance, where the masculine is overriding the feminine is overriding the masculine in a violent manner. And we need to correct that so that the masculine and the feminine can cohabitate harmoniously the way that they are meant to when pure consciousness is coming forth and knowing itself. And we are pure consciousness, but most times we don't know it because we are aspects of the mother and aspects of the father. So that pure consciousness is always with us. It's always flowing through us. But very often we're in denial of it because the ego says, well, I'm better than consciousness. Come on. I know how to indulge. I know how to get what I want, make me happy. And then consciousness, pure consciousness, the experience of exquisiteness goes onto a back burner. And there is an amazing amount of suffering as a result. An amazing amount of suffering. The highest intelligence, so there is nothing more intelligent. And a lot of times, you know, as teachers, people put you on a pedestal, they typically do. And really, it's not my intelligence, it's hers. I'm only repeating it to you. And I may be doing it in my own way, and I may be using my own words, and maybe sometimes I do it in a poetical fashion because I love poetry, you know. But it's her wisdom. It's her intelligence, because there is nothing higher. And there's nothing really that I or any other teacher can say that is the complete compilation of her wisdom. I can only give you, what do they call that? Bits, like little voice bits, right? I can only give you little tiny fragments of her wisdom, because her wisdom and her intelligence is so vast that our brains, you know, embodied in this body, are not capable, while also attached to the world, to understand the completeness of her extraordinariness. There are certainly individuals walking through the world, great saints, people who are just awakened souls. Absolutely, but they are few and far between. There are not many of them. And they may have a direct line, and they know it 24/7, you know. But still, with the exception of when they are in a state of meditation and communing with the mother, which is that oneness, right? We sit to meditate, we close the eyes, and we surrender our entire self. We surrender our senses. We surrender our voice. We surrender our ego, our mind, we surrender everything, and we just come into union with her. But they are still human. They still exist in a physical world. They speak a language that is a human-made language, so therefore it is as limited as the humans that made it. They are still prone to the senses. And so, like us, but maybe not anywhere near as much as us, they are vulnerable to the trappings of the world. So it's just something really interesting to think about, is that when you hear wisdom, whose wisdom are you hearing? We often say, oh my God, that teacher, I just love that teacher, everything that they talk about. What's the source? Where is it coming from? Go to that, because I will only ever be a poor substitute. She is the whole deal. She is the whole kit and caboodle. But we can have great conversations. Absolutely. Absolutely. And she is the one supreme Brahman. Now, the Brahman is that. We could call it the essence of source, the concept of a God, of an all-pervading being. That is her. That is her. And here we use the word Brahman for that, which is actually a masculine word. So she's saying here that even the male concepts of the originator actually are me. They are actually me. So when you talk about a male God, you just forgot to put the FE in front of it, She goes on to say, it is beyond reason, indescribable, incomparable, incorruptible. So all these aspects of herself, of the pure consciousness that she is, it is incorruptible. We cannot hurt it. We cannot hurt her. We cannot change her. We cannot manipulate her. We cannot impose our will upon her. It doesn't work that way. She is incorruptible. We, on the other hand, are corruptible. Why? Why, if we come from the Divine Mother, are we corruptible? Because she gave us a gift. When everything came forward into this realm of being, and humans made their way up the evolutionary trajectory, great conversation I had with somebody the other day. I'll share a little bit of it in a minute, but she gave us a gift of free will. She gave us the gift of yes and no. She gave us the gift to see for ourselves, smell for ourselves, hear for ourselves, taste for ourselves, feel for ourselves. She gave us the gift to do what we wanted to do with the gift of her being. And because she left it up to us, we're like a bunch of teenagers running rampant and the parents are out of town for the weekend. We're highly corruptible because we're in this huge playground of a world where there's all this stimulation coming in through the senses. And there's this consequence of an ego mind that is not healthy in most of us. It has its unhealthy aspects in every person. And we're constantly vulnerable to that. So we are corruptible. But the mother says it's okay. It's not something to feel bad about. You might want to correct it unless you like suffering. If you like suffering, then continue doing what you're doing. But if you prefer to know more and more and more of the deeper, more complete truth, then change your ways. Change your ways. And how do you change your ways? You come to me. That's what she says. You come to me. You put your childish things behind you. And whatever you do it for me. Whatever you create for me. Whatever you destroy for me. You don't do anything out of your own ego wants and desires. Whatever you do for me. And then it has no karma attached to it. But the moment that our action becomes attached to the ego by way of desire or repulsion, by way of uncontrolled emotions, then the karma sticks to us. And the karma, because it is a law of the universe to bring everything back to a state of harmonization, whatever we corrupt must be corrected. Whatever karma we create that sticks to us, we must resolve. And until we do, high suffering. Hello, old friend. You're there. So beyond reason, we can sit here and talk about it. It's a great conversation, and I love this conversation. I could just talk about the mother from now until the end of time. I would never get tired of it because she is just that profound and that mysterious and that full. But I still, if I spent every moment of this entire life describing her, I would still not describe her because she's indescribable. I might tell you a little bit about her. I might give it to you in my own words, but she's indescribable. And this is where poetry becomes really super helpful, because poetry is a little bit different than, say, writing a story out. Poetry allows us to envision the thing that is invisible. It gives us something to see, something to relate to in a way that is filled typically with a lot of beauty. And of course, there's poetry that is oriented toward more shadow, and that's fine. But that's what poetry is for me. It is a way of understanding or coming into a close relationship with that which is indescribable. It at least gives me a glimpse, a little glimpse. And maybe it does for you too. And she says that it's incomparable. So how do you compare perfection to anything? How do you compare? It's not apples to oranges. Because she is the apple and she is the orange. It's not nothing or everything because she's nothing and she's everything. It's not dark or light because she is the darkness and she is the light. So she can't be compared. And as humans, we like comparisons. We like to categorize stuff. We like to put it in the yes column or the no column, in the good column or the bad column, in the I like that column or I don't like that column. We like to categorize things, but we can't categorize her because whatever we put in whatever columns we make, it's all her. It's all her. And because it's all her, to have a relationship with her that is more toward pure and innocent and more toward healing, we need to come into right relationship with whatever it is we have in those columns. If we're driven by the idea that the things that are in our no column are the things that we're going to go to great, great extents to avoid, to counteract, to get away from, then we're taking all that energy that we could be using to empower ourselves to bow down more deeply to the mother. And we're putting it into saying no to parts of her. Isn't that wild? It doesn't mean you have to be throwing your arms around things that you really don't like. It just means be indifferent to them a little bit. Have more equanimity. And recognize that because we are corruptible, because we are imperfect, our understanding is also. And we may not be able to see why certain things are happening. We may not be able to recognize the good within the bad. We may not be able to recognize the bad within the good. We may not want to see it. So to cultivate a greater equanimity within ourselves toward the things that we put in our no column, or I don't like this column, actually empowers us to have a greater relationship with her, because we won't expend so much of our energy trying to escape her. And then she goes on to say, from out of itself evolves a certain power renowned as Maya. Okay, so today is about diversity, and boy, have we touched on that. Maya. Maya is the mother of diversity. Maya is what some individuals translate as illusion, but it also translates as that which is not obvious, that which is both real and unreal, and neither. Maya is the play of the mother. It is her Leela. And the play of the mother, which is also called Leela, is the growth, the maintenance, and the destruction of all that is. The growth, the maintenance, and the destruction of all that is. And we say, well, why can't she just make things grow and be maintained? Why do we have to go through the destructive phase? Because things have to be destroyed in order in a physical world for other things to come forward. And that's really the crux of it. It's very hard when someone dies. My husband died 2.5 years ago. Seems like such a long time. I miss him dearly every day. Do I wish that he hadn't have died? Of course. But do I understand that he had to? Absolutely. If no one ever died, do you know how long our planet would last? A day, maybe 2. At most a week. Some things have to be destroyed in order for other things to be born. And because the fear of death and dying, which is part of the mother's Maya, it's part of the illusion of our lives, because that fear is typically our greatest fear. It's called abhinivesha in the Sanskrit language. It is suggested for us to work to overcome that fear to whatever degree we can. And in the yoga tradition, there are actually practices that we can do that help us to overcome, to some degree, the fear of death and dying. They say that death isn't real. And for someone who is new on the path, that is a pretty out there statement. It's like, what do you mean it's not real? For someone who has lost someone, what do you mean it's not real? When the mother talks about Maya and the Maya of death, what she's saying is, what are you looking at? Are you looking at the body or the soul? Because the body is a vehicle. The soul is eternal. The body returns to the earth and becomes part of that cycle of life. But the soul goes on. The soul never perishes. It's like if you've ever had Dead Sea salt comes from the Dead Sea, right? So what do? They strain and dry out the water somehow, and they get the crystallization, right? And so they actually separate the salt from the sea, just like we've been separated from the mother, from the pure consciousness, from the universe. All you gotta do is take that salt back to the sea, dump it in there, stir it up a little bit, and you will not see that salt in that physical form again, because it has been reabsorbed into its source. And the same thing happens to us. We become reabsorbed back into our source. We do not, in our soul, become destroyed. The soul doesn't die. So Maya is her diversity. It is the experience of being born. It is the experience of living. It is the experience of dying. It is everything that happens in between. It is the experience of balance within ourself, and it is the experience of corruption within ourself. It's the experience of pain. It is the experience of healing. It comes through in every possible way that you can think of. Look at nature and the diversity that exists there. That is the mother expressing herself over and over and over and over again in a multitude of ways that we scientifically can't even keep up with. We keep finding new species, new creativities every day that she came up with. And she said, let that be, let that be, let that be, let that be. All of it comes forth from the flow of her consciousness. And because all of it comes forth from the flow of her consciousness, it does put a little bit of a responsibility on our shoulders if, in fact, we decide to become devotees of the divine feminine. To protect, nourish, and witness lovingly all that she has corrected, all that she has created. And so we become environmentalists. We become social activists. We become animal rights activists. We become servants to humanity. We become whatever we can become in order to honor what she has brought forth in this world. Because we are both her children and the stewards of whatever else she births. Because we understand that by caregiving that little frog that is endangered, we're actually caregiving a part of her, something she brought forward specially to this world. Something that has her consciousness flowing through it. Something that is her consciousness. So diversity. So I'll pause there and ask any reflections or questions at this point. Any reflections or questions? You can raise your hand. There's a little hand raising icon somewhere in here. I can never find it, but it's there if you would like to ask anything or reflect on anything. Okay. I hope that you're getting a lot out of this today. Okay, good, good. Did somebody unmute their mic? Oh, okay, wonderful. Vanessa, what would you like to ask or share? Hello there.
Hi there. I'm just still marinating in the sentiment of what was said, and it was cool because I caught myself in that. I joined late, so I didn't hear everything, but I'm grateful to be here. But what I heard was that idea of like, oh wow, like there's such a awesome spiritual teacher, and they're amazing, and this and that, and I caught myself, and I was like, whoa, like, and then I the second thought was like, oh, it's the message. It's like the divine talking through all of us. And that was really neat because I was like, yeah, that we're all expressions of it, and the divine is working through us. We are it, and it's working through us. And so it was really cool. And this idea of like diversity and the illusion and the difficulties, like I like resonated with that idea, or like that question, like, why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be that way? Why do, there has to be destruction? But I really love that idea of like, well, there's a destruction so that there's growth, and through adversity, there's more growth too. And what you mentioned, like we often don't see the good in the bad, and the seemingly bad, but like when we kind of come out of it, it's like hindsight, and it's like, wow, like thank God that happened so that like I learned this, and then I can share that with others, and then like help them through their difficulties. Like we're all kind of just helping one another. Just remember that it's okay and that there's something higher. And I like embracing our humanity too. Like I'm not perfect. I'm not supposed to be perfect. And there's light and there's the shadow, and not one is better or one's better. It's just different things of the same thing. So thank you for all of those reflections. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing your reflections. And yes, there's only one intelligence, and we just each get to express that intelligence in whatever way we're meant to. And so it's important that we remember that, because as teachers, it keeps us humble. And as students, it keeps us real, so that we're not putting people up on these massive pedestals where in their own human corruptibility, there's just too much temptation there. Yeah, absolutely. And Meg, how about you? What would you like to say?
I was just reflecting, hi everyone. I was reflecting with just a lot of this with the Ramayana and thinking of Sita and how now all of a sudden I feel like recently there's more Sita that is being said. And why isn't Sita being referenced to when right now we're in this state of Kali? And right now, how are we utilizing that to embody the pandemic, the mental health crisis, everything that's going on? So I think it just puts a lot of things into perspective of a shift that is being made within the one and how we can connect to it. So
absolutely. And go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. Yes, and Sita, Sita is very interesting because she is Ram's consort, and she's oftentimes talked about as the epitome of womanhood and the perfect partner. And what's not often talked about is how she represents that through sacrifice, and what it is that she's actually sacrificing and who she's actually sacrificing it to. And so that is a great topic for another workshop. But Sita is amazing. She is, such a strong goddess, amazingly strong, amazingly potent. And she is the embodiment of Shakti that says, okay, this has to end now. And at the end, what does she do? She goes up in flames. She goes back, to the ethers, because she recognizes that her work is done here. And so she's not going to, even though she loves Ram and she loves her son, she's not going to stay and continue, because she knows it's not time for that. And so one of the great gifts that she gives us is this wisdom of time and appropriate timing. And of course, then you go to the other end with Kali, and Kali is time. And Kali is very much time and destruction. And there is a time for everything. There's a time for things to be born. There's a time for things to die. There's a time for things to be maintained. There is a time to cut away that which is rotting and spoiled. And it's dirty, messy, bloody work. And that's why when we see Kali, we see her with the severed heads in the necklace around her neck, and we see her with the severed arms and legs. They're bloody and they're messy, and she's not afraid of the mess. She's not proper like Sita is proper. She's very bold in her own unique, wonderful, extraordinary way. And both of them have amazing messages for us. Sita tells us you can do what's right and not lose your composure. And Kali tells us you can do what's right, but it's going to get messy. And you don't have to lose your composure, even though it's messy. So just a few thoughts there. Thank you for inspiring those thoughts. Yeah. Any other questions or reflections, Nancy?
Yeah, when you were talking about Abhinavesya, am I saying it right?
Abhinavesya. Mm-hmm.
Abhinavesya. And I loved your analogy of salt from the water and then returning, you're changing form. And it just brought to mind that transformation is painful. And I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from, that there's this fire, maybe you have to apply fire to extract the salt from the water. And I don't know enough about chemistry to put it back together, but anyway, is that part of it? I mean, is that unknown? Like I've always loved that, even hearing it as a drop of water going back to the ocean, but the process by which that occurs, the suffering that sometimes occurs when that happens is, I think, for me, is the fear. It's not the fear of what's on the other side. It's what do we have to go through to get there?
Yeah.
Or watching someone else go through that to get there.
Absolutely. And that is a large part of the fear. And it comes from having an innate understanding of just how attached to this life we have become. You see, excuse me, you have a car, you have to go to work. So you open the door to your car, you get in the car, you drive to work, you open the door, you get out of the car, and you go to work. You might be attached to your car in some ways, but you're not intertwined with your car. We don't see our body like that, even though that's actually the purpose of the body, is that we inhabited the body walks us through life, we're the soul witnessing and experiencing. We become attached and we start having these adhesions to the body every time we get attached. And then when it comes time to get back out of this vehicle, those adhesions keep us here. We fight. And certainly there's a part of us that knows I have to let go of these adhesions, but there's also a very sensory oriented part of ourselves that says, no, I don't want to let go. Mm-hmm. I like this earth. I like these people. I like this family. I like this suffering. I like the idea of healing. I like who I think I am. And so those adhesions grow even stronger. It's very interesting. When I was at Deborah Heart and Lung Center, I had the opportunity, I was a yoga therapist there. And I ran a program at the hospital many years ago. And I was invited to sit on a few surgeries. And so one of the surgeries that I sat in on was a lung surgery. And so they were taking out half of a lung. And the thing that was really super interesting is if you know your anatomy, you know that your lungs exist inside of your chest, right? And your lungs inside of this beautiful thoracic cavity are meant to be unadhered to the walls of the cavity. This way they can breathe and they can do their work of oxygen and gaseous exchanges, and they're not meant to be inhibited. But when you don't take care of your lungs, say you smoke, then what happens is the outer lining of the lung forms adhesions to the inner lining of the thoracic cavity. And the most profound thing I saw is that as they're going into this person to remove half of the lung, they have to unadhere the lung from the lining of the chest cavity. So this is like the soul adhered to the body, and death is the process of separation. So can we prepare ourselves to have a smoother transition? The answer is absolutely yes. Will we? Depends on who you are and how far you're willing to take it and how long you think you have. Some people say, oh, I don't have to worry about that for years. And then tomorrow they're gone. Some people say, oh, I better get to it today because tomorrow I might be gone. And they're here for 90 more years. We don't know when we're going to go. So because of so much uncertainty, which is part of the Divine Mother's Maya, it's part of her diversity, it's part of her illusion, because we don't know, It supports us to live an entire life in alignment with her wisdom, her teaching, and the understanding that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, as the old saying goes. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and we're not meant to stay here. We're not. And we each come together to play a part in this, beautiful stage of existence. So yeah, that's a great question. They're all such great questions and reflections. Thank you.
Thank
Are
you.
there any others before I give us some final thoughts for the evening on this? Any other questions or reflections? Okay. So going back to the Devi Gita, which is where we're reading the verses from, and this is C. Mackenzie Brown's version of the Devi Gita. And the verses that I'm reading are the very beginning of chapter 2, where the Divine Mother is explaining who and what she is. And she goes on to say, neither real nor unreal is this Maya, nor is it both, for that would be incongruous. Lacking such characteristics, this indefinite entity has always subsisted. As heat inheres in fire, as brilliance exists in the sun, as cool light exists in the moon, just so this Maya is firmly situated in me. So everything she's telling you, she's saying there's no separation here. There is no separation. We think there is separation. We live like there's separation. We love like there's separation. We hate like there's separation. We fight like there's separation. But there is no separation, not really. The separation is in the mind. And the question that we can ask ourselves is, how can I utilize my spiritual path in a way that allows me to be profoundly authentic about the things that I believe in, like the work that needs to be done to alleviate suffering in this world, and also honor the fact that there really is no separation. My enemy is me, and I am my enemy. How do we get to the point where we can say that and truly mean it? It's not an easy path in any way, shape, or form. And that struggle, that back and forth with the mother, is part of her diversity. It's part of her illusion. It's part of her consciousness, is to say, I'm going to give you a gift. Here's a candy store. Have yourself some fun. Don't get too caught up in the candy. It'll give you a tummy ache. But you can have a little taste here and there and keep it on the healthy side. But I'm not going to regulate you. I'm not going to tell you what you must do and what you mustn't do. But what I will tell you is that once you get yourself into deep trouble, all you have to do is come back and read my words, and you will know the path to take to get out of that trouble. All you have to do is come back to the practice and the wisdom. And whatever hot water you've gotten yourself into, it will become cool again. It will become cool again. So I'd like to just go around the room before we end for tonight. Before we end, first I'd like to say at 7:30 we have Kirtan and Satsang this evening, so I hope that you all come back on for that. I will probably continue talking about Ma, because that's just where I am in this moment. And then we'll do this again next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and we'll come into the next topic about the mother, and then one more week after that. And if you are on Clubhouse, you can come on there too, because it's the same conversation but different. Every conversation is unique. And with that, I'd like to go around and just have everybody say one or two words about something that inspired them in the conversation this evening. So it could be that you're inspired to go deeper into inquiry. It could be that you're inspired to read the Devi Mahatmya, to love, to investigate, whatever your words happen to be. And so we'll start with Meg. Meg, what are your words this evening?
The first thing that came to my head was Hanuman Chalisa and Jai Sitaram. So for me, I think it's allowing to give it up and able to embody and embrace.
Absolutely. And isn't Hanuman the one for that? Right? He is the ultimate devotee. He is the example for all of us. Absolutely. Yes. Vanessa, how about you?
I was thinking that the attachment to be conscious and think about how attached I am to all things, and also attachment and separation. I think that's like two takeaways to think and reflect on those things.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Dakshina, how about you? I don't know.
I enjoyed the simplicity of the words in the chapter. That was beautiful, and it was easy to consume. So thank you for that. And I like the relationship with the candle and the flame, because it's through that fire that we can feel even just a breath of purification, even if that's just for a moment. And sometimes that burns in order to get there, and it'll burn again. But just tasting that little bit of purification and brings me a little less fear to feel the burn.
Absolutely. It lets you know it's possible, right? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Nancy, how about you?
I find that it's inspiring me to continue on my spiritual path. And I'm getting a lot of imagery as you're reading. So I think it's inspiring me, my creativity.
I can't wait to see.
That's something new. Yeah, I'm just beginning to rediscover.
Wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to seeing what you manifest.
Thank you.
Sandy, how about you?
I enjoy being in your presence as always, and then just the words that you use kind of I don't know, they're very helpful for me. I was especially drawn to the attachment piece because that's something I've been working on for a very long time. So I always like hearing that coming in different ways and getting different ways to digest that. So I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you. Kathy, how about you? Where'd she go? There she is.
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I think what I picked up on, or what I thought, and what it just made more apparent, is how we're taught that we're not all connected. We are connected, but it's something that's not taught. We're taught separation from little on up. So it just brought that more forward in the forefront for me, listening to the conversation.
Absolutely. And we really are. We're enculturated that way, you know. And the mother,
so apparent.
Yeah. And the mother says, that's okay. Play that game. That's fine. You'll suffer. I'll still be here, you know. So she's just there waiting for us. She's like, okay, have fun. Go scrape your knees. Go fall a few times. When you're ready. Yeah, thank you. Gloria.
Thank you.
Absolutely, love. Absolutely. My honor.
Hi, everybody. I came in late, so I apologize. I'll listen to the recording. But like Sandy, it's just like when you speak, I really feel like I just want to be a sponge and just learn more. So that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. That's so kind of both of you. And Alejandra, how about you?
Hi. Well, also many beautiful things that you said. But the biggest one for me, and because of what I'm going through in the path that I'm following, is there's no separation. And that reminded me, like, to Florence Scovel, when like there's no separation in the divine mind. Therefore, that is my right. And I'm going through like a family separation, so that was beautiful. So thank you.
I'm glad it was helpful. I'm glad it was supportive. Thank you so much for sharing. Stella, how about you? And Stephen, how about you?
Good evening. It's great to be with you. First of all, tonight is just a reminder on the practice of selflessness and trying to pursue my high self in order to serve and unite and connect. And sometimes, especially in this day, it's easy to get lost. And I really appreciate Wednesdays with you because it really taps me back into purpose and direction. And it's just a refocusing evening. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you for your kind words, and I'm glad that it was supportive. I hope you're coming into Kirtan next. We'll have a lovely time in there as well. And is Stella there yet with her microphone? I'm not sure. She might not be able to unmute. Well, Stella, we're sending you lots of love. So I hope that the night was supportive. And so let's sit nice and tall. We'll close the eyes. Thank you all so much for your presence and for your reflections. Thank you to the Mother, heartfelt gratitude for all that she is. Even if it's beyond the scope of our understanding, we can still try. We can still surrender. And we can still simply allow her grace to be with us. And the more we do that, the more we may find that our world heals, our relationships heal, and our hearts heal. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart, we'll lift our voices in one Om. Take a breath in. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely night. I hope to see some of you, all of you, in Kirtan in about 20 minutes. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Very welcome.